It is Wednesday, August 3rd here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to night one of the third annual Draft Sharks Invitational. I'm your host, Matt Schauf. With me tonight are Jared Smola, Adam Krautwurst, and a bunch of the biggest drafters, analysts in the country. Jared, I know for sure that it's August 3rd because that's the fourth time that I have started out a podcast with that today. So we've been talking a lot, but tonight's special because it's the beginning of, like I said, the third annual Draft Sharks Invitational. We got a bunch of people playing together. We were going to have league prizes in each. We'll get into all the details. One overall winner. It's a fun tournament.
Yeah, I'm getting a little sick of you, Matt. It's only early August, so it's gonna be a long season. But yeah, I'm excited for this.
At this point, then we're doing okay.
Yeah, it's true. I'm excited for this. It's a cool format, which we'll talk about. It's a loaded group. I'm always excited to see how these guys are going to put their teams together.
Yeah, we'll be going tonight, tomorrow, Friday night for this. Next week, we got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each of us, I said Thursday. I forgot how to say names now. So each of us will be drafting. None of us is drafting tonight, but there will be one of us in each of these drafts. It's all for cash. As I said, Adam, this was your baby 3 years ago now. How do you think it's going off so far?
Yeah, this is exciting. I think it's going well. The prize has gone up, which is always nice. Yeah, I'm excited to get all these guys in here. It's the best of the best. The best analysts, we think the best high stakes players in the world are in this. Six nights. I think to me it's the toughest single bullet competition in all of fantasy football. So and I draft tomorrow, so I'm going to be locked into these guys tonight, setting the ADP for us.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get your attention back to the show because you'd be like, wait a second, I'm watching to see who I should take tomorrow night. Where guys are going to go. So a bit about the format before we get to it. And you guys can see the stream has the draft board, so you can see the first two picks. We will definitely be talking about all of the picks here, but just the format before we get to that. So you know why people are drafting players where they are, because it's going to be different. First of all, 6 leagues, like I said, 6 different drafts, 12 teams in each of those leagues. The winner of each league gets $500. One overall winner is going to get $5,000 of Lenny Papano's money. And Adam, that makes me hate this tournament, honestly, because it's my boss's money that is going to these people. So instead of it maybe being my Christmas bonus, I got to duke it out to try to get it.
Yeah, I mean, at least it'll go straight to your paycheck. I'd probably have to beg and plead for it on the front porch of his house or something. So, but yeah, it'll be nice. I mean, that's a sweet grand prize for an invite for no $0 entry fee. Really, really cool, and thankful to Draft Sharks for doing that.
Yeah, 25 round draft tonight. We will not be covering every single one of those rounds, but we will be going for a while. We're going to cover quite a bit of it. Of course, this draft and all 6 of them are running on Fantrax this year. Totally free, totally customizable. You should go to fantrax.com now /draftsharks. Today, that's not now /draftsharks. Fantrax.com/draftsharks. But you should go there now, set up your free league, import your existing league from a worse site so you can run it on Fantrax. If you register at any point in August, you're going to be automatically entered for their game day experience drawing. They're going to send one lucky league to a city of your choice to see an NFL game, give you $6,000 of spending money. It's one I want to win, so I hope that nobody out there watching this wins it because I would like it. The scoring for this league that's drafting tonight and the rest of them, mostly common scoring settings, but we got some quirks. We got tight end premium scoring, 1.5 points per reception, of course, 1 PPR for everybody else who's not a tight end. Mike Gesicki might be confused, but he gets that 1.5 points. Super flex, we got 2 flex spots in the lineup. One of those can be a quarterback. That's what super flex is. We start 3 receivers every week. It is a best ball format, so these guys are not going to have to set their lineups every week. The computer will do that for them. No kickers, no defense. They're a waste of time. It's 17 weeks of best ball action, collecting points the whole time. We don't have any of those one and done playoffs. So at the end of this, Jared, the best team wins.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, right? It's a little bit of the best ball strategy where you're probably going to want to be building stacks. When possible, it's a super flex premium. So I think it gets everyone out of their comfort zone, which we like to see.
That's right. And getting out of their comfort zone tonight is going to be this order of drafters. We got number 1, Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros. He is at Fitz_FF on Twitter. Number 2 is Evan Silva of Establish the Run. He, of course, is at Evan Silva on Twitter. Number 3 is Mike Sanda, a veteran of the high stakes leagues at NFFC and FFPC. League titles for Mike across several formats on both of those sites. He is at Mike Sandman 62 on Twitter. Number 4 in the draft order is Sean Koerner of the Action Network. He is at _oddsmakers, one of the better projectors, along with my buddy Jared Smola, in the nation every year in that competition. Number 5, Dave Kluge of Footballguys. He is at Dave Kluge on Twitter. Number 6, Darren Armani of Fantasy Mojo. He, of course, is at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter. Number 7 in the draft order is Matthew Freedman of Fantasy Pros and lots of other places before that. He is Matt F. the Oracle on Twitter. Number 8 drafting tonight is Dom Baranyi. I knew I was going to stumble over one of these names. Dom Baranyi, part of the Go Bills team that won the FFPC main event last year. Those guys are based out around Buffalo. He is at FF_Go Bills on Twitter. Number 9, JJ Zachariason, now running his own site, lateroundqb.com. He is, of course, at lateroundqb on Twitter. Number 10 is Jake Ciely of The Athletic, creator of the Flex Expert Leagues, among other things. He is at All In Kid on Twitter. Number 11 in the draft order tonight is Dan Williamson, part of the GOAT District podcast crew. Best ball draft grinder, a high-stakes vet. He's got league wins across FFPC main event, auction, dynasty. He is at Overhyped Sleeper without the final E on Twitter. And our last drafter is our buddy, Mike Schopp. We potted with him earlier today. Adam pods with him multiple times a week. Mike Schopp is at Schopp Talk on Twitter. And Adam, he has just gotten more and more into fantasy after, being a voice of sports in Western New York for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he's thirsty for it. He loves it. And he learns on the fly too. I was comparing him to, and he always says he's like one of the older guys in the business. But I was like, listen, some of the best college students are the ones that go back to college when they're in like their 30s. Okay, so just consider yourself like a late bloomer, and he loves it. He's messaging me 24 hours a day about it, and he's doing really, really well.
Hey, Rodney Dangerfield went back to college and won that diving competition, right?
He can do that too. He can do that too.
So let's get to the reason that I think people are here for this tonight, and that is who is actually picked in this thing. Remember, Superflex, best ball, all that. The 101 still, though, to Pat Fitzmaurice is Jonathan Taylor, and then Christian McCaffrey, number 2 off the board. Jared, are you surprised at all that we started running back in this Superflex competition?
Very surprised. Very surprised. I expected Allen to be the first pick off the board. I expected the first few picks to be these elite quarterbacks. And more surprises in the first round, too. I mean, Derrick Henry, a surprise to me, going ahead of Jamar Chase, going ahead of Travis Kelce in the tight end premium format. So, definitely not a chalky first round in my view.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you love about the format is what is chalk for it. We don't really know because there have been more Superflex tournaments around so far this year than we have ever seen before, Adam, but still, it's not quite what this tournament is. So it's always interesting to see how people react to it. So let's look at the rest of that first round and we'll kind of react to how things went. Mike Sanda took Josh Allen 3rd off the board. I would imagine he was happy to see Josh Allen there at the 3rd spot for the Superflex format. Cooper Kupp to Sean Koerner at number 4, Lamar Jackson to Dave Kluge at number 5, Justin Jefferson to Fantasy Mojo at 6, Austin Eckler, the 3rd running back off the board at 7 to Matthew Freedman. And then Dom took Justin Herbert at 1-8. Adam, any surprises to you in that range beyond what we've already talked about? There are 2 running backs going first. And frankly, we said it was a surprise. Are you surprised to see the running backs go ahead of Josh Allen?
I am. I mean, one, I've seen one, but not generally 2 go ahead of Josh Allen. It's not, the quarterback position so interesting, especially in these super flex drafts. I mean, I did the Scott Fish Bowl live in Buffalo, and that's super flex. And I think I picked 3rd or 4th, and I wanted Kyler Murray, and I couldn't get him. The guy at 3 or 2 took him. So it's just interesting. Different quarterback takes, fine. I don't really care who you like at quarterback, whoever you're comfortable with, fine. But it is interesting to see that the top quarterback went 3rd. I always wonder if everyone knows that it's super flex when like the first 2 guys know it's fine. I mean, Taylor and McCaffrey are fine, great, but it's always interesting to wonder if they actually knew. But then everybody catches up. Starting with Don Baranyi, it's quarterbacks for like 7 of the next 9 picks.
I do think it's always important to remember that it's super flex. It's not 2-quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So that super flex spot, and especially in a best ball league where we go 25 rounds, you're drafting so many guys. It's easier to get away with, or even maybe, want that super flex spot to not always be a quarterback in a format like this.
And like I said, we've had a lot more super flex drafting this draft season. I've done a lot of it on Underdog, and we would typically see quarterbacks fly off the board in round 1. You could often get Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey toward the end of round 1. I've seen Christian McCaffrey get into round 2 in that format. That is 20 roster spots versus 25 here, and fewer starting positions to fill than what you have here. So I think in that vein, it makes sense for the quarterbacks to be pushed down a little bit, but we can certainly see from the board overall that this is super flex and that people know what they're drafting. I remember we've had some drafts in this over the past couple of years where a team will go like 10 rounds without a quarterback. We're like, wait a second, pal. Do you know what you need to do in this draft? So we'll see exactly how those things progress. Patrick Mahomes went to JJ at number 9 in this draft. Derrick Henry, 10th, was the 4th running back off the board in round 1 to Jake Ciely's team. Then it was Kyler Murray at 11, Jalen Hurts to Mike Schopp at 12, and then Travis Kelce around the turn. Adam, would you have bet on those being his picks, seeing things play out ahead of Mike that way?
Yeah, I kind of know we had a little strategy discussion, I think, last week about what he was looking to do here, and then I won't blow up his spot, but I think that was I knew he wanted Hurts for sure, so I'm glad he was able to get him. And yeah, so it's so interesting of the different builds. I mean, outside of the Scott Fish Bowl, which has crazy rules, this might be the next closest competition when it comes to like the different builds and the ADPs you're going to find over these 6 drafts, because you can build with having to start 3 quarterbacks and flex position. I'm sorry, 3 receivers and flex positions and super flex and tight end premium. I mean, you can literally start the draft any way you want, and it can certainly work. So I like a QB heavy build. So a heavier build, especially when you're on the ends, like Mike is, you never know what's going to happen between your picks. So if you want those quarterbacks earlier, you kind of got to take them in maybe the first 4 picks. And I would imagine he would take at least one more here.
Yeah, I like the difference that you mentioned between this and the Scott Fish format. I like that, this is quirky. It's different than what we're used to, but it's not crazy. We've played tight end premium. We've played super flex. You play with 3 wide receivers all the time. So it pushes everybody off of what ADP is and what your typical approach is, but it's also not nuts. Like, I don't know what first down scoring does in this, or I don't know what points per completion and minus points per incompletion. I like a format like this that just makes you think a little bit more without blowing the whole thing up.
To me, just looking through 2 rounds, Mike and Dave, I think, have my favorite starts, getting one of those elite quarterbacks and then getting an elite tight end in Mike's case, one of the top 3 wide receivers in Dave's case. I like how those 2 teams started.
And we just had Dave Kluge in the comments on YouTube say that he is mad that he got sniped on Mark Andrews for that, which makes sense because he had Lamar Jackson in round 1, I believe. Right? Yeah. Yep. So that would have been a nice start. So we've got a lifelong grudge there, as Dave says, because we got a lot of money on the line, a lot of Lenny Papano's money, a lot of what would have been my bonus money at Christmas time. But I'll try to get over that and enjoy the competition for what it is. Continuing into round 2, we had Tom Brady go off the board second in round 2 to Dan Williamson. So he started with Kyler Murray and Tom Brady. Then Trey Lance went next. That made him, what number quarterback is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the 8th quarterback. That's right about where he's going in ADP right now, Jared. And are you sad / not surprised to see Trey Lance up to that level on a regular basis?
Yeah, I'm sad because I think that's where he belongs. I think when he was going quarterback 12, a month ago, he was a value. Say what you want about him as a passer, but Kyle Shanahan's scheme just makes it easy. Look at what Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard did in that offense. And, now Lance has better weapons than Mullins and Beathard had. And then, of course, the rushing. Like, I just think his floor, even if he's not a good real life quarterback, like his floor is going to be quarterback 10. And if he is a better passer than we think, he could crack that, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, kind of, quarterback 4, quarterback 5 territory, I think.
Yeah, I think that QB8 is a fair price for him. I think it's a little bit high for him to be a smash pick at that point. Could he outperform that? Sure, but it's going to obviously be tougher from QB8 level than it was from, QB13 for a little while in the best ball drafts earlier in the year when we started getting rumors about Jimmy Garoppolo not going anywhere. That was a fun time to be drafting. Right after Trey Lance went Joe Burrow to late round QB, his second quarterback to start this draft. And I mentioned that because it's funny, but JJ, I've heard talk on multiple pods at this point about how quarterback values have changed and quarterbacks belong earlier in drafts now, and that people are more appropriately valuing them at this point. So he's certainly not still wait on a quarterback, regardless of the format, even outside of Superflex. Russell Wilson went to Don Baranyi's team. So he started with Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson. That makes 3 teams that started quarterback right there toward the second half of the round. Adam, are you favoring the 2 quarterbacks start in that range like they did, or would you rather get one of the elites, especially if you get, Herbert, Mahomes, whoever else you include in the elite territory? Would you like to get those 2 like that, or would you rather go an elite 1, take something else in round 2, and then see who gets to you in round 3?
Yeah, I would probably go that route. Get the elite 1, hold off, and grab a stud at receiver, tight end, or running back, and then come back around and get, because in the middle late third, you're still going to get a decent QB. Trevor Lawrence, fine. Kirk Cousins, fine. Especially when you got one of those elite ones there. But yeah, it's so ironic. The late round quarterback goes quarterback. I love it. That's part of the game. And then he comes back and gets that triple Bengals stack there: Burrow, Mixon, Higgins. So I'm perfectly fine with them going QB at the end there.
We will certainly be watching the stacks in this best ball format, and we've already seen a couple get broken up, and maybe some others make picks that make you wonder why they didn't go in a different direction. What about you, Jared?
I was just going to say, going back to, whether, Wilson was the crack pick there in round 2, I think it's so important in a format like this to have your tiers set and to, trying to be getting the last guy or 2 in a tier. And I think, Dom did a nice job there with Russell Wilson, who to me is kind of in that, I don't know whether you call it the second or third tier of quarterbacks. And like by the time it got back to him, if you wanted a quarterback in the 3rd round, he's looking at Trevor Lawrence or Kirk Cousins, who to me are a full tier below Russell Wilson.
Yeah. So is the tier break right there after Russell Wilson, or would you put it after Dak Prescott? Or
to me, Dak and Stafford are in that tier. And then it's like the Carr, Cousins, Fields, Rodgers, that kind of guy. So it's Russ, Dak, and Stafford. All those 2nd round quarterbacks are kind of in that tier to me.
I think a fully healthy Stafford would be there. Him with the elbow puts a gap between him and Dak Prescott for me. And Dak Prescott, I wonder if I'm a little bit too low on just perhaps overrating the receivers working with him this year a bit, just, versus what he's shown us production wise so far.
Yeah. I'm starting to wonder if we should be bumping Stafford down our rankings. I'm starting to get worried about the elbow. It's August and he's still having pain. Dak, I'm good with where we're at. I mean, I am concerned about his weapons. I'm a little concerned about the O-line. Man, if the Cowboys signed Will Fuller, though, I'd want to move Dak up 2 or 3 spots in the ranks.
Yeah, so he's probably in a fair spot. He came out similarly for me, and I can't say that I've been, drafting him a ton from there. So obviously I don't love him that much. So after the Russell Wilson pick, we got Najee Harris. So a running back start from Matthew Freedman, who actually threw 4 rounds just to peek ahead, has no quarterbacks yet. Dak Prescott was the first quarterback for Fantasy Mojo on the other side of that Najee Harris pick at 2-7. Jamar Chase followed him to Dave Kluge's team. Lamar Jackson, Jamar Chase start for him. Then Matthew Stafford was we got a refresh on the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So Matthew Stafford, the 12th quarterback off the board. Then we've got a little bit of a gap before the next one. Dalvin Cook to Mike Sanda's team. Stephon Diggs to Evan Silva, who took Christian McCaffrey the first time. Devontae Adams to the Jonathan Taylor team at the turn. And before we get into round 3, Adam, are you surprised that Sanda did not take Stephon Diggs to stack with Josh Allen at that round 2 pick?
I am for sure. I'm wondering if he thought maybe Diggs would be there on the way back, but Diggs generally goes after Chase. He's usually the next receiver taken. Maybe he was kind of playing with fire there. He might love Dalvin Cook, but I think in this situation, having to start three, I think receivers are very valuable anyway. So Diggs might have been my pick there, but maybe Sanda was thinking he could get him on the way back.
And perhaps he's down on Stephon Diggs slightly this year, just enough, and thought that he had a round one running back. And maybe we'll see if he grabs Gabriel Davis at some point. Maybe he is more limited to that side. So that'll be interesting to watch. And for stacking purposes, at the first pick, so Pat Fitzmaurice chose first overall, and then back around to him for the 2-3 turn. He stacked Devontae Adams and Derek Carr together. That seems like a nice pairing to get at the 2-3 turn in this format, Jared.
Yeah, I think both guys were good values, by themselves, and then stacking them up together makes a lot of sense. I'm a bit surprised in general about, we had running backs go 1-2, but I think the backs after that fell a bit farther than I'm expecting. I know it's the, start 2 running backs, 3 wideouts, but guys like Leonard Fournette and Aaron Jones getting into the 4th round, even in this format, those seem like pretty strong values to me.
Yeah, it slowed way down after that quick running back start. We had 2 go with the first 2 picks, but then just 4 total by the end of round 1, 2 more in round 2, and then 4 more through round 3. So interesting to see those trends, because you wonder if it's going to speed up with the way things start, but no speed up there. Evan Silva took his first quarterback in round 3 with the 2nd pick, Aaron Rodgers to go with Stephon Diggs, Christian McCaffrey. Justin Fields was the 3rd pick of that round. He goes to Mike Sanda's team with Josh Allen and Dalvin Cook. And then it was the tight ends that we alluded to. Mark Andrews went to Sean Koerner's team. He's got Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. So I got those 2 guys stacked up to start his draft. And then Mark Andrews at tight end stole him from Dave Kluge, who had to settle for Kyle Pitts, which, Adam, we're talking tight end premium. So that's not a bad consolation prize.
Yeah. I mean, Pitts, Mike Schopp and I took Pitts last night in the pros versus Joes, but we were and Andrews was there with a pick left. He ended up getting taken in front of us, but we were considering Pitts over Andrews. I think he has that type of upside. Pitts is certainly a fine consolation prize if you miss out on Mark Andrews, but that stack would have been nice for him.
Yeah, I don't think it would be shocking if Kyle Pitts outscored Mark Andrews this year in PPR, 1.5 PPR, which is obviously favoring the receiving volume even more. Fantasy Mojo took Saquon Barkley as his first running back in round 3. Justin Jefferson, Dak Prescott, Saquon Barkley for him. Where did CeeDee Lamb was still on the board for his Barkley pick, right? Yeah, it went a couple picks later. So another spot where drafter passed on the quarterback wide receiver stack in favor of Barkley. I'm going to assume that Mojo just thought that Barkley shouldn't still be on the board at that point. What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, probably. And I also think, when you're talking about stacking here, you're only trying to beat 71 other teams. This is not the underdog tournament where you're trying to beat 400,000 teams. It's not the FFPC best ball tournament even. So to me, stacking is definitely not as important in a format like this than it is in these huge tournaments.
I would definitely agree with that. I would also say, though, that if Dak Prescott has even a small tournament winning season, then CeeDee Lamb is probably having an amazing season as well. So I still think I would have gone that way. I love Saquon Barkley, but I think I probably would have tried to pair Lamb with Dak and seen what happened running back wise, especially with just, like I said, 6 of them off the board to that point. So, it's not like we saw Saquon fall out of the top 10 at the position, but that's why we do this, to see the different approaches from everybody in this one. We had Matthew Freedman with the 2 running back start go Deebo Samuel in the 3rd round. So still no quarterback for him there. CeeDee Lamb then went to Dom's team following the 2 quarterback start, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, CeeDee Lamb in round 3. Joe Mixon, you guys alluded to earlier. JJ got Joe Burrow in round 2, took Joe Mixon, the running back for the Bengals, in the following round. Kind of interesting to go that route ahead of the wide receiver. Is that surprising to you, Adam, even though he ended up getting T. Higgins around that 3-4 turn and with the 4th pick around 4?
Yeah, usually there's such a receiver thirst in a lot of drafts, especially when you're at the back end. And especially when you got to start 3 and you can't start 4 or 5 even with the flex and the super flex. So, but I think it ended up working out for him. able to get Higgins, able to get Sutton. I mean, that's a real nice start for him. He doesn't have to worry about quarterback for the rest of the draft as far as like, oh my gosh, I got to get one. He might pick a third later on for bye weeks or injuries or whatever. But I think it's a real nice start for him. And maybe he goes running back again here to kind of solidify that, or he could go, there you go, with another really good receiver. Marquise Brown, hopefully.
The speedster.
He's speedy on and off the field. So,
right.
But that's a real nice start for JJ, knocking out with two good.
I'm gonna give JJ some credit and say he gambled that Higgins would make it back to him in the fourth, seeing that guys like Swift and Kamara and Evans were still on the board. Those guys tend to go ahead of Higgins anyway, so I think he probably took a calculated risk there that Higgins would make it back to him.
Yeah, we only had 7 wide receivers off the board when his pick came up there. So we still had Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill around. And, like you guys said, the stacking is not imperative here. So I think it's a good place to take that gamble, because if you don't get T. Higgins, it's not like it's crushing you, especially because he got the Bengals running back. It's not like he reached for something else. So there's still value there, even though it's less of a direct stack with the quarterback and running back. If the Bengals offense explodes, Joe Mixon's probably going with it.
Agreed.
We had Trevor Lawrence go off the board next after the Joe Mixon pick. He was the 16th quarterback, which is right around where he goes. I think, Jared, if I were Matthew Freedman and started out with the 2 running backs instead of Debo, I would have taken Trevor Lawrence there to start my quarterback group, knowing that I'm already, 2.5 rounds into the Superflex draft without one.
I think I would have too, because again, looking at like if you're tiering these guys, to me it was like Lawrence and Cousins as the last 2 guys in that tier. So I probably would have grabbed one of those guys, and Cousins would have made sense too to me. I would have grabbed one of those guys with the 3rd round pick.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Another advantage to taking quarterbacks early is fighting your own urge later on to continue to not take them, because like you get into these 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, like, my God, am I taking Matt Ryan over Cortland Sutton? Like, it's just, it makes you sick to do. So if you can knock out quarterback, then you're just like, okay, I don't have to worry about taking, Mac Jones over AJ Brown. It's sick, but it kind of makes sense. But I would, that's why I lean kind of going quarterback early also.
Yeah, 23 quarterbacks off the board through 5 rounds. So, there's only a handful of like locked in starters left.
At least if you take Mac Jones, though, you right away fill that middle school assistant principal role on your roster, and that's going to be tough for the rest of the guys in there.
How about this Fantrax draft board, though? Color coded, which is sweet, and then the player headshots, a nice touch.
There you go.
And I don't even have to zoom in to be able to read the names at the top of it, which I think says something both for them and for me, because I'm 42.
I couldn't tell it was a Fantrax draft board. How did you guys know that?
So after Trevor Lawrence, we had DeAndre Swift at the second to last pick of round 3. We had Alvin Kamara closing out round 3. He was running back. What we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Running back 10. So that's actually a tiny bit earlier than where he's been going relative to other running backs. Kirk Cousins around the turn to Mike Schopp's team. He got now Jalen Hurts, Travis Kelce, Alvin Kamara, and Kirk Cousins to start out his draft. Adam, are you texting him a thumbs up, or are you telling him that he should have changed any of those picks?
No, listen, Mike goes to the beat of his own drum here. So I think from what we talked about, I think he got who he wanted. And so, he's got 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, a tight end, and a receiver. I think I know what direction he's going to go here next. I don't want to kind of blow it for him, so I'm not going to say much, but going forward. But yeah, I mean, I like his pick so far. This is a different strategy, right? We're a very well-rounded team. He's got his elite tight end. He's got his quarterbacks. He's got his running backs. Kamara might be a smash pick. I mean, it sounds like he's going to play the whole year. And if so, I like him ahead of Swift. I like him ahead of, I'll say it. I like him ahead of Mixon. I don't like many people ahead of Barkley. So, but Kamara's a great pick there.
And how about Nick Chubb at 5'12", behind Cam Akers, behind ETN, behind James Conner? I get it's full PPR, but to me the Chubb hate. I mean, he was RB7 last year, or sorry, he was RB12 last year in PPR points per game. Like, I know the guy doesn't catch a ton of passes, but I think he's still a very good runner, and that still counts too, even in PPR leagues.
Yeah, he's RB17 here. And I would like to take a moment to applaud Jared on his growth, because every year when his projections come out, we have to tell him to move Nick Chubb up higher because he just hates him that much. So
No.
Nick Chubb defender.
No. I've always had him in the right spot. People drafted him, a half round too early for the past 2 years. Now it's kind of gone too far in the other direction.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, in all seriousness, that's important, because it is easy to say, I haven't been drafting Nick Chubb the past few years and it's always worked out for me, so I'm just going to keep letting him go. But if everybody else is doing that, then it's like, well, maybe I'll take some Nick Chubb, because he definitely has spike week potential. So after Kirk Cousins to start round 4, we had Mike Evans go to the Tom Brady team for Dan Williamson. So I'm sure he had to like seeing Mike Evans get around that turn. Mike Evans a little bit more attractive before Chris Godwin was not on the pup, before Julio Jones landed there, but still, Mike Evans is the clear number 1 there, certainly in best ball format. You love having the guy that could score 3 touchdowns in any given week. We had Jake Ciely do the anti-Matthew Freedman draft and take his 3rd quarterback in round 4. He's now got Derrick Henry, Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston to start his draft. Adam, is that overkill at quarterback? Should he have passed on Winston there?
I personally would have passed on Winston, but again, in Superflex, he might have wanted to lock up a 3rd, like, guaranteed starter at the position, and there's something to be said about that. And now he can spend the rest of his draft, at running back, receiver, and tight end. And it's interesting. Some people, I think, one of the positive things about Underdog has been, like, with their Superflex tournaments, and I know FFPC and FFWC have Superflex tournaments now too, is I think it's bringing people along to be more comfortable with doing these tournaments and working on different builds and stuff like that. So maybe Jake he's comfortable with doing the 3 early quarterbacks, and he's got his kind of late round sleepers that he really loves to kind of fill in the gaps at the other positions. But he's going to be playing catch up, I'm sure, at the receiver position, which is tough when you have to start 3 and you plus a flex where you generally want to flex that receiver. So he's going to be playing catch up. We'll see if he is able to do it here.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. Using 3 of your first 4 picks on quarterbacks, and you need to start 2 RBs, 3 wideouts, a tight end, and a flex. It gets kind of thin to me at those other positions if you're taking 3 quarterbacks so early.
Yeah, and you do just need to start 1 every week, but obviously you would like to have 2 in your starting lineup every week, because it's the highest scoring position around. So locking in 3 early should give him a pretty good chance of getting 2 of those guys into his lineup pretty much every week. And of course, the other factor here is, even though it's not a large tournament, you are trying to beat 71 other teams. So you can't draft in the same formation as other teams around you. So there's something to be said for drafting different than the other guys in your league. Maybe it was a strategy going in. Maybe it was a reaction to how the draft room is going. But either way, it's different from what anybody else has through round 4. So we'll see how that works out for him. T. Higgins made it back to JJ in round 4. As we said earlier, Aaron Jones went to Don Baranyi at 405. His first running back followed Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, and then Aaron Jones in round 4. Tyreek Hill to Matthew Freedman's team, his 0 QB start to the draft, and we'll see what he did the next round. For those that are listening to this afterward, Fantasy Mojo took Tua Tagovailoa as his second quarterback. So he had a Justin Jefferson, Dak Prescott, Jared refreshed it while I was reading the players, Saquon Barkley, and Tua start for his draft. Dave Kluge got Leonard Fournette as his first running back in round 4. And then Sean Koerner took Keenan Allen to go with Mark Andrews, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp to start his draft. Adam, anything stand out to you in that range of picks?
I don't really think so. I just the more like the Tannehill, Tua, Winston, kind of Mac Jones, Matt Ryan range there just doesn't cut it for me. And generally, I don't care about quarterback, but in these super flex, I would like to have 2 before then. So I don't love it, because again, a guy like Mac Jones he might barely, it's just a super flex, right? He might barely outscore like a really good receiver you could have gotten in that range on a week to week basis, like AJ Brown or Cortland Sutton. I don't know if he had a chance at Sutton. He did. So it's like at that point, I would just be taking those high upside skill guys, which is why I like to kind of go receive or quarterback a little bit earlier.
Yeah, this is the tier thing to me again. I don't see a difference between the quarterbacks in round 5 and the quarterbacks in round 7. And I know you can get sort of freaked out in these super flex leagues that you're going to get, left out at quarterback and not even have 2 starters. So in some cases, then you just kind of bite the bullet and make sure you get a starter in round 5. But to me, Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones could easily outscore Matt Ryan and Mac Jones.
I think Jameis went earlier than I would take him, but I think Tua's fair where he went, and especially with a wide receiver of his still on the board that we saw make it back to Fantasy Mojo the next round. So I'm fine with Tua going in that range. Even though what you say, like the wide receivers could score similarly over the course of the season, we're much more likely to see Tua average 19, 20 points a game than we are to see Cortland Sutton do that. So if we're taking spike weeks, we can also much more easily piece together that wide receiver core and just take guys that you don't love, but that are gonna give you starter weeks, and then those get stitched together into a quilt of winning by the end.
Beautiful, poetic.
A quilt of winning. I like it.
Right. Keenan Allen.
Hey, Pat Fitzmaurice is joining us here.
Oh, sweet.
Matt's sleeping at the wheel here as host. I had to add Pat.
Gentlemen, what's going on? Adam, Matt, Jared, great to see you.
How are you, Pat?
Pretty good.
Of Fantasy Pros, by the way, for anybody who's not familiar for whatever reason. Pat, we were noting, of course, that you started off this draft with Jonathan Taylor, which was a surprise to us. But what was your thinking going in and not starting with a quarterback?
My thinking was I forgot it was Superflex. I actually looked at the scoring beforehand at the rules, and I just kind of I didn't look closely enough, obviously. So man, I would have gone Josh Allen. So it was scramble mode after that, and then was gonna try to kind of punt quarterback, but then with Jake Ciely being a weirdo and going quarterbacks and 3 of his first 4 picks, kind of felt under the gun a little bit. Man, interesting draft so far for sure. Not quite the way I would have liked it to play out. Oh, and look here, I'm on the clock.
We have Pat coming up. I won't make you talk through your process unless you want to, but I know what it's like being on the clock for 2 picks in a row and talking to people.
Yeah. All right. So I guess I'm gonna go bully. Man, I can't. I tweeted about this a little while ago. Like, if you had a guy with Jonathan Taylor's size and speed who had scored like double-digit touchdowns his first 2 seasons, like, where would you think he would be going in his 3rd season? Top 3, top 5. He's still here in the 8th round, end of the 8th. I'm taking Antonio Gibson here for my actually 3rd running back. So
I can't quit him yet.
I just
I'm
can't, man. And a former receiver too, so it's not like he doesn't have the pass catching chops.
But do we know? Does Ron Rivera know that he used to play receiver? I'm
Right.
not sure.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, man. That's the painful thing. Like, he, couldn't do that job better than J.D. McKissick. So now I'm just like, I'm falling behind at the wide receiver position, which is never a good feeling.
It sometimes can be the way to approach these things, though, because most people are not choosing to fall behind at wide receiver. So then you get into a range where lots of other people have lots of blue, and you can, it's not exciting players, but you can pick through some guys that are going to give you starter weeks, though.
Yeah, boy, I'm gonna shoot for the moon here with Sky Moore.
Oh,
The sky's the limit.
Adam likes that one.
Love it.
Yeah, you're a Sky Moore guy, Adam?
Yeah, I just think, especially in best ball too, it's like he's gonna have, a healthy Sky Moore is gonna have weeks for you, and in best ball for receiver in general, you can get guys like Matt was saying in the teens where they're gonna pop for a touchdown here, pop for a touchdown there, and those are the weeks that they're gonna get into your starting lineup. So I like the well-rounded roster. I like the pivots kind of. Pat, when did you realize it was super flex? Did you think Mike Sanda was an idiot at 3? And you're like,
no, that pick definitely like raised my antenna a bit. That was kind of it, and just like you hate being on an end too, and not attacking the court. I knew that it wasn't going to be pretty at the quarterback position coming back to me. I was kind of happy, though, with the recovery with the Adams-Carr combination.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
at the 2-3 turn. I thought that worked out pretty well. And then just kind of continue to lay off quarterback a little bit. And, I will say about that Wilson-Goff combination, like I do think the Lions and Jets maybe have two of the most underrated offensive lines in the league. So maybe it'll give time for those two to operate. But, it's I definitely needed 3 waiting on quarterback that long. So had to kind of nail the position down there.
Yeah,
Goff and
before all the
Wilson.
starters were off.
Goff and Wilson are perfect best ball quarterbacks to me too, because you would never feel comfortable putting them in a starting lineup. But I think Wilson will chuck it deep. He can run a little. Goff has the weapons where if game script gets out of hand for Detroit, he could put up some big games too. So I like those two guys as quarterback 2s and quarterback 3s here.
Yeah, you nailed it, Jared. Best ball only. You do not want to throw
Yes.
those guys into a starting lineup on a weekly basis in redraft.
So you mentioned liking having Devontae Adams and Derek Carr get to you at that 2-3 turn. Then, of course, it was DJ Moore after that. And then to start round 5, it was Javonte Williams. Do you, in general, like Javonte Williams over James Conner and Travis Etienne? Or was this like something different to try to make up for the way things started shooting, for ultimate upside with Williams?
Kind of ultimate upside. I mean, I know that, like, on talent alone, I do think he's probably one of the 5 best backs in the league. And, even though the Broncos were disinclined to make it anything other than a 50-50 split with Melvin Gordon last year. And, hey, man, I'm a Wisconsin guy. Like, I love Melvin Gordon. He's really good. I wouldn't be surprised if they did the 50-50 thing again. But if they don't, and I know like Cecil Lammy of Footballguys has indicated he thinks it's going to be more of a shift toward Javonte this year. He's kind of a Bronco insider. We'll see, man. I hope he's right. Wouldn't surprise me if it remained a 50-50. And even then, I think, Javonte could at least give me a fair return on that investment. But if it does shift in his favor and I've got a Javonte, Jonathan Taylor 1-2 punch at running back, like that could be pretty potent.
Yeah. And we'll all see exactly how it does work out. But the way that Denver handled Melvin Gordon this offseason certainly indicates that they don't want to do things with the new coaching staff the same way that last year's did with that backfield. I mean, Melvin Gordon hung out there on the open market for a long time and then came back for a smallish 1-year deal.
Yeah, agreed. So maybe that is an indication that they do plan to shift things a little more in Javonte's favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are certain players where if I don't take them, if I fade a guy, I generally like to fade guys that, like, if I'm wrong, they're not going to kill me. Javonte Williams could kill you. Like, if you fade Javonte Williams, there's a chance that he could be a top 3 fantasy running back. Like, if Melvin Gordon really isn't a thing, or if Melvin Gordon gets hurt, he's got a ton of touches on his body in his career, man. I hate the thought of passing on a guy like Javonte consistently. So I think that's a kind of a good kind of stance to take there sometimes on a guy like Javonte.
Yeah, I was a Jonathan Taylor fader last year, so I know what you're talking about, Adam.
Exactly, and he could be this year's Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he could just be awesome in an awesome offense. I mean, we all know about Javonte Williams, but I hate fading a guy like that because he could absolutely punish you.
Yeah, I don't want to be totally out, but I'm not too far in either. So Zach Wilson, Jared Goff, Antonio Gibson, Sky Moore, we heard you pick those guys when it came to that turn. Were there any players, Pat, that you were hoping were going to be there that didn't get to you? Any near misses among those last 4 picks?
Let's see. It was a little earlier, kind of a near miss where I was hoping for it probably wasn't going to happen. A Michael Pittman. I had already stacked the 2 Raiders. I was hoping for like a Michael Pittman, Matt Ryan stack in at the 4-5 turn. Mike Sanda took Pittman 2 spots ahead of me, so that was not to be. That wasn't really it. Or that is about it. There was no one I was really who was like right in my grasp. I might have taken Hawkinson. Evan Silva took Hawkinson 1 spot ahead of me. I probably would have grabbed him instead of Antonio Gibson or Sky Moore. Probably would have been a Gibson-Hawkinson combination there. So I guess Evan did pick Hawkinson away from me.
So once you were not able to get the Pittman-Matt Ryan combo, was Mac Jones a consideration at that spot where you took Javonte Williams, or do you think at that point it's like, well, I'm not gonna double punish myself for not getting that quarterback to start things by chasing more than I want to and taking Mac Jones here.
Yeah, for me, the quarterback tier kind of flattened out there, Matt. So, like, I was willing to just kind of wait and, pick whoever, let other guys sift through the quarterbacks who were left and just kind of, take what was left over to me a bit later on.
Yeah, and I like it because I agree that maybe Mac Jones does way outperform those guys, but especially for best ball purposes, I don't think he's a long way from Zach Wilson and Jared Goff to start things. And I think one way that you can get yourself in trouble is when you have a draft misstep to overcorrect it. It's like when you're driving, you don't want to overcorrect because you are on ice or went off the side of the road.
Right.
Then you get yourself into worse trouble.
Yeah, steer into the skid. Exactly.
Matt's definitely teaching his daughters how to drive right now.
That's why I have the green screen behind me so you guys can't see what's going on.
Oh man, I've got a 16-year-old daughter, so that hits a little too close to home, Jared. I don't know.
Yep, mine's 15. She made flashcards to get ready for the driver's permit test.
Oh boy.
Which puts her ahead of me. She's much more prepared. Well, Pat, thank you very much for jumping in and joining us because it was nice to get some of your strategy along the way. And before you get back on the clock, we'll let you go so that you can focus on building out this team because we got a lot of rounds left to go.
Thanks, guys. Always great to talk to you and always great to be in the Draft Sharks Invitational. Thank you for having me back. Appreciate it.
Before you do go, though, let people know where they can find you and your stuff.
Oh, yeah. Hit me up at fantasypros.com. We've got a lot of great stuff coming out throughout the month of August. You can hear me on the Fitz on Fantasy podcast and check me out on Twitter at Fitz_FF.
Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros, thanks very much for joining us. We love having you in this draft.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Pat.
One of the nice guys from the industry. I always like talking to Pat. And he jumped on with us last year during his draft.
Yeah.
Him jumping in there. So thank you, Jared, for paying attention to the issue and realizing that he was there so you didn't have to just sit there and listen to me make metaphors. Jumping back into the draft, let's go to that fifth round because that's kind of where we left off. Actually, we didn't even get to the end of round 4 because that was where Michael Pittman went off the board before he could get to Pat at that turn. And I agree, that would have been a nice pairing for somebody trying to make up at quarterback, Michael Pittman and Matt Ryan around that turn. So then after Pittman went, we had Ryan Tannehill go off the board at 4-11 to Evan Silva. That was his second quarterback. Then Pat took DJ Moore, of course, Javonte Williams to start round 5. As we mentioned, James Conner, Travis Etienne followed him off the board. Adam, we talked about Javonte Williams a little bit. Would you have taken him right there with James Conner and Travis Etienne also still available? And Nick Chubb, who we talked about going all the way at the end of that round.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who we took him over. I think Conner to me, like if you project him out, and I know you guys had Conner will project higher, but I feel like the upside for a guy like Williams is certainly higher. Like Conner, I don't think has season-long top 3 upside that I think Javonte Williams does.
I disagree.
Yeah, well, I think if they both play 17 games, sure, but I just think Conner has a history of missing games, and Javonte, I think if he gets the right, again, if Melvin Gordon plays all year, that's a different story, but you can kind of create the narrative there that Javonte could have higher upside, but I like him in that range of guys. So I definitely would have taken him over Conner and ADP too. Like Javonte is going higher than Conner, so maybe not in this draft, but in some drafts you can get Javonte in the second and Conner in the third, and you're fine, and you can get them both. But Etienne's been climbing, I know, but I think they're kind of all in the same tier there. And if you do a bunch of drafts, grab each of them, but I probably lean Javonte just on the upside there, age, offense, stuff like that.
Jared, I know who you favor between them. It's James Conner for me, and he does have the injury history, but Adam afforded me the opportunity to talk about the Draft Sharks injury guide, which certainly says that James Conner is at a greater risk for injury than Javonte Williams because we haven't projected for a lot more touches, and that's a big factor in that injury risk for running backs. I still love that the role is right there for him, and we don't have to guess about how the guys behind him are going to factor into what he gets.
I'm still surprised people aren't convinced that Conner is going to keep the pass catching role. Like, I know he didn't last year when Chase Edmonds was healthy, but Chase Edmonds is gone. Darrell Williams and Eno Benjamin are not proven pass catchers. Williams is okay, but James Conner has been a great pass catcher going back to his Steelers days. I think if anything, Darrell Williams and maybe Benjamin could steal some early down work from Koerner. But I think he's locked in as the pass catching back. I think he's locked in as the goal line back. And, those are the two most important things.
And we have him projected high, both in fantasy points and in touches. So that's going to boost his injury risk. He's still at 83%. That sounds high, but if you look at running backs, and Jared and I did a whole podcast on this earlier this week, that's not really that high a number for a workhorse running back. It's below where Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Miles Sanders for the Eagles are. So, some injury risk for sure, but we know that risk is there for all running backs. So I love the upside. I've had the same issue with James Conner at some point where I'm like, it's James Conner. Am I really ready to draft him that early? But then I have to just look at the role. And, if I like the other workhorses as much as I do, there's no reason for me to say, but it's James Conner, when the Cardinals are saying, yeah, we saw what he did last year and we're going to make sure to pay him whatever it takes to keep him around and give him a lot more touches.
I mean, to me, he's a 3rd round pick with a 2nd round role. Like he's just discounted because of the injury history.
And I mean, if you use the draft, really, I think he probably has a 1st round role depending on where running backs are going. If you use the draft war room, he's going to hit the top of your board. And the only question is, do I just go ahead and take him now to make sure I get him? Or do I wait around the turn? It's just a few picks away and see if I can steal him because it's still way ahead of ADP. One of those decisions that you face every draft. But I like Conner where he comes up. I have to, I've mentally gotten past being uncomfortable with it. I think he faces a great role and should get great usage this year. Travis Etienne's next, and he's kind of the opposite, Adam. We all love him. We have no real idea what he's going to get usage-wise, touch-wise each week, but the upside is absolutely there. And I don't think, even though he's climbed, I don't think he has out-climbed his ceiling. I don't think he's come close to doing that this year.
No, he hasn't. And I think Etienne's a guy, I wish Robinson wouldn't play. I wish they would put Robinson on the pup just for more of a security because, it's not about what we would do. It's about what the coaches are going to do. I know it's a new coaching staff. I get it. And Robinson's coming off that injury, but, he's been a workhorse, so Etienne will probably get the valuable touches. He'll probably get the pass catching role. He obviously has a relationship with Trevor Lawrence there going back to college, but we don't know who the goal line role belongs to if James Robinson is healthy. So that is another reason why I like Conner over Etienne if we're looking in that range too. But Etienne's a kind of a polarizing player in the 2nd and 3rd round. I don't think he's polarizing in a sense where people don't like him. It's just how much. I mean, you got people talking about he should be a 1st round pick at some of these fantasy drafts. I think that's just a little crazy. We're just assuming he's going to get a James Conner role, where it could be much, much less. We don't really know how the offense is going to do. We assume the offense is going to be better, but and then they had a video of him on Twitter the other day running, and a doctor was like, I'm surprised he doesn't break his foot every time he runs. So, which is interesting. So Etienne's a guy that I like. I'm fine with in 3rd of a standard draft. Mike and I took him in the pros versus Joes last night in the 3rd, and I was happy to take him there. But he's a guy that he could bust, and I could be like, that I'm not surprised that he busted. He could also be a guy that finishes in the top 10.
Jared, my assumption / hope for his role is why can't he be what DeAndre Swift was for the Lions last year? And we had Hayes Carline come on the podcast the other day as part of our beat writer series. And he said, wherever you're drafting Travis Etienne, he should be earlier. And wherever you're drafting James Robinson, he should be later.
And it's not just Hayes. I mean, every single Jags beat writer has been talking up Etienne and calling him the team's best offensive player in camp so far. So I'm excited about the guy, and I agree with Adam. He's polarizing, but it seems like in every draft there's someone who loves Etienne and pushes him up. He's going in the 2nd round in a lot of these high stakes drafts now, which to me he could pay off there, but it's definitely an optimistic view of his. I mean, we haven't even seen him play an NFL game yet.
Yeah, it is a shame to see him going that early. It was nice to get him later than that. And that's part of why you draft all year, right, guys? We should be drafting starting in January. We had Mac Jones go after Travis Etienne. Then it was A.J. Brown at 505 to whose team is that? I can't see the top of the board, but doesn't really matter. Thank you, Dave Kluge. Then we had Jalen Waddle go to the Tua team right after that, Fantasy Mojo. So like I said, he started out with Justin Jefferson, Dak Prescott, Saquon Barkley, then Tua in round 7, got Jalen Waddle. Of course, knew he wasn't going to get Tyreek Hill because Hill left the board a pick ahead of Tua, but Jalen Waddle's a nice guy to stack with him, not because I'm betting heavily on Tua and Waddle this year, but if Tua pays off and that's what you're betting on happening, if you take him here, then Waddle's probably coming with him.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I'm actually a little bit higher ever since the Gesicki news came out that they're making Gesicki basically a blocking tight end and narrowing that passing tree. I'm a little bit higher on Waddle, which I find Waddle dropping more in recent drafts.
Yep.
So I'm certainly happy to take him. Tyreek Hill too, like Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 10. I mean, all of the downsides kind of baked in at that point. Getting him at wide receiver 10 or Waddle where he's been going. I saw him fall to the 5th round in the Pros vs. Joes the other day. I mean, that's fantastic. And so if it's just those two guys getting the rock, fine. I mean, I think Jalen Waddle's a great pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of positive stuff coming out of Miami camp about how Waddle and Hill are looking in that offense with Tua. I thought Waddle was overvalued. He was like a mid-3rd rounder, I believe, back in the spring. I thought he was a bit overvalued. Now he regularly goes in the 4th, now sometimes in the mid to late 4th. I like him there. And Tyreek Hill I like as a 2-3 turn pick. He's been going there mostly since he got dealt to Miami. So I'm on both those guys. I like Mike Williams over Waddle. But that's a fine tiebreaker if you have Tua to side with Waddle there.
And Waddle, of course, stayed in round 3 for a while, even after the Tyreek Hill trade. So that was when I was off him, and I have seen him going in round 4 as well. So I become interested at that point. Jared, would you mind scrolling up on the draft room a little bit? We'll catch people up with picks, and then we'll get back to where things are. After the Jalen Waddle pick, we had Matt Ryan go in the middle of round, 5? Then it was Mike Williams after that to the Justin Herbert team. So a nice stack there. Cortland Sutton went the pick after that. And Dom probably had a choice between Mike Williams and Cortland Sutton with Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson already on his roster. So he favored Mike Williams over Cortland Sutton. Then it was Cam Akers as the second running back to Jake Ciely's team. So he sandwiched those 3 quarterback picks with Derrick Henry and Cam Akers, 3 quarterbacks, 2 running backs through 5 rounds. Darren Waller after that, and Nick Chubb as running back 17 after Cam Akers left the board. As Jared pointed out much earlier, it was Nick Chubb and Brandon Cooks around the 5-6 turn for Mike Schopp. Then it was a second tight end for Dan Williamson, who, of course, is a veteran of the FFPC format, Adam. So he not only, loves the tight ends, he probably loves that they're purple on this draft board, too, because that's familiar to anybody who's doing FFPC drafting.
Yeah, he's got to love that. I mean, Dan's an expert and a kind of a veteran of all the different drafts, NFFC and all that stuff. So he probably was salivating to see in the guys in the 6th round that are normally going in like the 2nd or 3rd. So and Dan probably has the best draft I saw in the Pros versus Joes. So I wish I could have kind of got you guys there. Sorry,
Dan might have the best draft in this league. I really like his team. The 2, he got the 1 elite quarterback, Brady, a tier 2 quarterback, got those 2 tight ends. I think Waller and Kittle were excellent values there. Got the kind of went hero RB, I guess, with Swift, and then pounding some wide receivers. I think Elijah Mitchell, I'm sort of starting to warm up to Elijah Mitchell. I think he's kind of locked in as the guy there. So I like Dan's team a lot.
Yeah, and he had Kyler Murray, as you said, to start out, then Tom Brady. He got Mike Evans to pair with Tom Brady, and I think that stack matters much more than getting an Arizona pass catcher to go with Kyler Murray, who can go off, naked, especially in this format where it's a small tournament. He doesn't need a pass catcher to go with him because it's probably going to be spread around a little bit. We'll probably have Marquise Brown lead things early. We might have Zach Ertz help fill the DeAndre Hopkins void. Then we'll have DeAndre Hopkins come back. We don't know what's going to be up with Rondale Moore. So I don't mind not having a Cardinals pass catcher to go with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and that kind of is one of the advantages to taking a quarterback early that relies so much on their legs is you're not kind of forced, or you don't feel forced to stack them with pass catchers because, like you said, a lot of their fantasy value comes from them by themselves.
And he could have taken Marquise Brown at that George Kittle spot, did not, opted for George Kittle as his second tight end. We had Deontay Johnson go after that, then Marquise Brown to Dom's team after that. To JJ's team after that. So that was his third straight wideout after his 2 quarterback start, and then Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Cortland Sutton, Marquise Brown. We had Breece Hall as a second running back for Don Baranyi's team. Then we had Terry McLaurin, Jerry Jeudy go off the board to Fantasy Mojo. So we had the Russell Wilson squad pass on Jerry Jeudy around after choosing Mike Williams over Cortland Sutton. So clearly taking the guy that he saw as the running back value over the wide receiver to stack with Russell Wilson. I think that's probably fine for the format. We've talked about not needing to stack here. Jared, would you have taken Jerry Jeudy, or you like the running back fine?
I like the running back there. Again, that's where I'm not going to push the stack. Just for the sake of the stack. I just want to say something about Cortland Sutton. I think all the Cortland Sutton drafters got bailed out. I think he was such a bad pick in the late 3rd round. But now that Tim Patrick's out for the year, I think that's about where Sutton should be going. So I think all you guys got bailed out.
I'm very curious to see how Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy sorts out, because it seems like everybody thinks that Jerry Jeudy is not very good and that Cortland Sutton is very good. And I don't know what there would be I don't know what points to that other than this spring, the buzz guy was Cortland Sutton and he's taller.
Yeah, no, I think that, the loss to Patrick certainly helps Jeudy. I was a Jeudy over Sutton guy anyways, so I feel more comfortable with that. I just feel like he's going to get more catches. But now I'm a little bit more inclined to take Sutton than I was before, because now I think it's going to be a little bit more narrowed. But Hamler is not as good as Patrick, but Hamler in the late rounds could be a target now for sure.
Yeah, I'm still a Jeudy over Sutton guy. I do think the gap's strong for me, because I think Sutton does more of what that offense wanted Tim Patrick to do. Some of the downfield stuff, some of the red zone stuff. So I think Patrick's loss helped Sutton a little more than it helps Jeudy. I do think it helps Hamler the most. Like, if Hamler's healthy, that's the big question with him. But if he's healthy, he has a great opportunity now.
I have an easier time now seeing them both being okay at cost. I was not really comfy with either of those guys before the Tim Patrick injury, but now I'm a little bit more comfy. We'll see exactly how high ADP climbs on them. Deshaun Watson, the second quarterback for Dave Kluge's team, moving on through round 6. Then it was Ezekiel Elliott as the first running back for Sean Koerner, Allen Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster. Then we had that Zach Wilson, Jared Goff turn that we talked to Pat Fitzmaurice about a little bit ago. That started off a quarterback run. We had Zach Wilson, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield going all in a row. Jared, I'm sure that you think Daniel Jones should have gone earlier in that quarterback run.
Yes. I'm kind of surprised Deshaun Watson dropped it. Although I guess I missed news when I was out on the golf course that the NFL's appealing his suspension, right? So I guess maybe that makes sense. Yeah, to me, Daniel Jones should be going. I'd take him ahead of Mac Jones and Matt Ryan. Yeah, I would have taken him 2 rounds earlier.
Are we worried about that fake text or fake tweet from Fantasy Life about the Giants trading for Garoppolo? I mean, I don't know.
It does sound like Jones.
What
it does sound like Jones has gotten off to a rough start in camp. I think he was better today, but it's a new offense.
And he's not that good. We have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, we don't need him to be good. Just get the ball to Tony and then run and then run a little bit.
If the reports are Daniel Jones doesn't look great at practice, you're like, duh. That's why he doesn't have a contract after this season. Can he keep the starting job?
We just
care about.
We just need him to be good enough to keep the starting job.
Hand it to Saquon, baby. Let's go.
That was the third quarterback for Mike Sanda, and it's, of course, a lot easier to like Daniel Jones as your third quarterback than if it's just him and Tyrod Taylor for your actual NFL team. We had Baker Mayfield as the third quarterback for Sean Koerner's team after that. DK Metcalf off the board, then Gabe Davis as the fourth wide receiver for Fantasy Mojo. So actually we had Mike Sanda pass on Gabe Davis as a stacking option with Josh Allen as well to take that Daniel Jones spot. And with Allen Robinson at his previous pick, I agree with taking Allen Robinson ahead of Gabe Davis. I certainly would not have reached for Davis ahead of Allen Robinson just to complete that stack.
Yeah,
definitely Robinson. Agree. Yeah, definitely Robinson over Gabe Davis. And then I like the Jones pick, even despite, passing on Davis for the stack, but, to get Jones at a value and to lock up a third quarterback, which I do think you want to do. And, there were very few locked in starters still remaining when Mike took Daniel Jones.
Yeah, we could say that the next quarterback off the board might not be a locked-in starter. Baker Mayfield to Carolina. We'll see if he beats out Sam Darnold. I think we're expecting him to, but it's not locked in yet. Davis Mills, a locked-in starter after that. A few picks later after Gabe Davis. Then Rashad Bateman. We've got a sea of blue here, which seems like it's time for that. We had Rashad Bateman follow Davis Mills, then Darnell Mooney, then Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Chris Godwin, Dallas Goedert around that turn to Mike Schopp. He, at that point, had, two wideouts. So it was Brandon Cooks, Chris Godwin. I'm not sure about Chris Godwin as a second wideout, but I guess there's time to fill that in behind him, Jared. And then Dallas Goedert as a second tight end. I mean, Travis Kelce and Dallas Goedert on a tight end premium team. He probably only needs one more tight end throughout this draft. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I thought he would go that route. I didn't want to kind of blow up his spot there, but I think Goddard's a great pick. With Jalen Hurts there. He could start on both Kelce and Goddard there. I think he's going to be playing some catch up now at receiver, especially not knowing about Godwin if he's going to be on or off the pup. So he's going to be a little light at receiver, but the plan is to be really good at running back, dominate at tight end, be really good at quarterback, and just hopefully again. There you go. KJ Hamler to take some later guys that can pop for a couple of games.
To me, I mean, you never want to be chasing in any position, but the reality of this format is it's such a deep starting lineup. You're probably going to be chasing somewhere. And Jared, I don't know about you, but for me, I think the easiest place to be in a chase position and catch up is wide receiver, because you'll hit a bunch of guys that you won't like, but all you're doing is grabbing a whole gang of them and hoping that you can get 3 to 4 starter weeks every week.
Yeah, we're not going to still be on stream when we get to round 22 and 23, but we'll post the draft board after. You look at those rounds, and if you want a running back, it's guys who aren't even assured roster spots. You can still find wide receivers who are going to play 60-70% of their team snaps down in that range. So yeah, I definitely would rather be in need of wide receivers, midway through the draft than at these other positions.
After Dallas Goedert, we got Michael Thomas, we got Drake London, Amon-Ra St. Brown as the 5th straight receiver for J.J. Zachariason. He followed up with another Robert Woods in the next round. So he started quarterback, 1 running back, 6 wideouts. That looks like a hero RB type of build for this format. And then followed those with Tony Pollard and James Cook, who are complementary backs as opposed to lead backs, which makes sense at that point in the draft. We can talk about that particular build. Actually, maybe let's do that now. Adam, what do you think of the way that JJ chose to put together his roster so far?
Yeah, no, I think we talked about that earlier with him going quarterback heavy there. Can you scroll up there, Jared? I'm trying to just peek at the top of that there. There we go. And then the kind of the hero RB, which is funny that taking a running back in the 3rd round is hero RB, but I love Pollard and Cook in those hero RB builds. You get a Zeke injury, and then Cook. I think Cook is he isn't an injury from Singletary away from being dominant, because I don't think he's that like full-time running back role, but I think he's like that archetype where he's like a rich man's JD McKissick or something like that, where he's going to be able to I think you're going to throw the ball to the running back a lot, and I think that he has a chance to take it to the house. So I don't think he's like a Rashad White type back where he's an injury away. That's more of the Tony Pollard role, but I think Cook could be a guy that could start for him every single week. And get maybe 4 to 5 catches and just keep his running backs above water while he dominates at quarterback, he dominates at receiver. And then if he can get an injury to Zeke, this team could really smash.
We've got about 18 minutes left in this stream. We can see that the draft is a little bit more than halfway through. We're not going to run through all of it. As we've said, we're not going to stay on for all of it, but rather than run through pick by pick from here, let's look at some other things that stand out. And we talked about running backs coming off the board a little slowly early on. If we look at rounds 9, 10, 11, it really picked up through there, and then 12 as well, especially 10 through 12. We saw a bunch of running backs where it looks like guys wanted to secure the more durable positions early on and wait and push off that position and then group together guys to try to get, I guess, just 2 starting weeks out of them. Cause that's probably the ultimate goal there, right, Jared? We only have 2 starting spots we need to fill every week. So more drafters are most likely looking to get that flex spot filled with a wide receiver, with a tight end, and then just, take their chances with piecing together running back.
Yeah, it's funny. I think we had a lot of teams going for similar builds here with, 1 or 2 elite running backs or, second tier running backs, and then sort of ignoring the position and then starting to sort of, pound it in this 9 through 12 round range. I think a lot of teams are sort of trying to do the same thing here.
Mm-hmm. I just saw in the comments on the YouTube, somebody's looking at where Romeo Doubs went, and I wasn't even, I hadn't even noticed that he came off the board yet. Where do we have Romeo Doubs go in this draft, Jared?
Let me do a control F. Oh, he hasn't gone yet.
Okay.
He hasn't gone yet.
All right. I guess it was a question of, do I take him here or if it's too early? Okay. I was a little worried because I don't want him to start climbing too early in drafts. I want him to stay in the range where he makes sense, and not have to chase him into round 12, because I'm not doing that with Romeo Doubs. But he's an interesting player right now. I was looking at Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I was looking for him a little bit ago to see if he went to the Patrick Mahomes team. Is that the same team that drafted Mahomes? Because he went right down there. Okay. Yep. So it looks like, did he go right before? Yeah, he went. He
went 1 pick ahead of JJ in the 11th round.
Yeah, so I think I agree with taking Tony Pollard as opposed to trying to get MVS. He did not have any Chiefs wide receivers there, and seeing if he would get back to him. Like we've said, it's a good gamble to take, where if he gets back, I think MVS probably the pick over James Cook. We'll never know unless we talk to JJ and ask him. It's not really that important a selection, but a solid gamble to take there. I do like MVS, at least comparable to Sky Moore. I think I like him a little bit more than Sky Moore, especially because I don't have to take him ahead of Sky Moore right now. But, it's just an interesting wide receiver core to take pieces of and see what happens, because there's no sure thing there.
Yeah, and this gap is rare. Sky Moore went 9-1, MVS 11-8. I know in FFPC drafts and in underdog drafts, they're generally going in the same area. So this was I think earlier than expected for Sky Moore, definitely earlier. I mean, Pat took him over Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk, guys Moore usually goes behind, then probably on the later side for MVS.
And Mike Schopp, I believe, is mad at me for saying Romeo Doubs out loud, even though, I'm just following the chat. I'm trying to make sure that people feel seen in the YouTube video comments. So, Jared, looking at the whole board, we've got 14 minutes left here in what we're doing. Of course, the draft is going to play out. And as you said, we're going to show the entire board. You can certainly react to all of it later on and ask our drafters why they did certain things. We will certainly be doing that. But looking back at the teams, anybody stand out to you for any reason, really, positive or negative? Or just surprised?
I'm not going to be mean and say anything negative about anyone. We're talking about JJ's team. I do like what he did. If I'm nitpicking, I probably would have taken like Goddard, what would have been here, or like Eli Mitchell here. I think maybe he went 1 too many wide receivers in a row there, but I like the general build there. And I'm gonna go back to Mike's team.
I did take after James Cook there.
So he went tight ends with Irv Smith and Tyler Higbee, and then he took Dameon Pierce as his 4th running back. So I like the type of running backs he got after starting Mixon and then kind of ignoring the position. So that's a good team. And I like Mike's team as well. Getting Hurts and Kelsey, getting that, nice second quarterback in Kirk Cousins. And I think Nick Chubb was a value. I think J.K. Dobbins in the 10th round here. Things are sort of trending in his direction in the Ravens backfield. We've had 2 reports recently now that he's ahead of Gus Edwards in their rehab. So maybe Dobbins is the one that's ready to go week 1 and Gus Edwards is not.
Yeah, and of course, we're not going to actually bash anybody's drafts here, because the whole reason that these guys are here, and girls in some of the upcoming drafts as well, but the whole reason these drafters are here is because they've proved that they're good at this fantasy stuff. So we're just watching and reacting, really. We talked about Matthew Freedman's team earlier. He waited on quarterback, got Matt Ryan fairly late, among the quarterbacks. He then, a couple rounds later, took Davis Mills. So he did at least get 2 guys that should be locked in starters all year. And then 3 rounds after that took Marcus Mariota as his third QB. And there's a good amount of separation between Mariota and where he took Davis Mills, which was the last quarterback taken before that. I would expect we see at least one more QB for Freedman, and maybe he tries to pair Desmond Ridder with him. Maybe he then tacks on a backup later in the draft to try to, take a chance on handcuff upside. But there are obviously, as we said, a lot of different ways to approach this, and you're trying to beat a whole field.
For sure, yeah. And I know I mentioned Dan Williams' team. I think he did a nice job. I like Darren Armani's team here too, Fantasy Mojo. I mean, I don't agree with Justin Jefferson at 6 ahead of the elite quarterbacks, but I think he did well to get Dak and to get Tua as, 2 solid quarterbacks. I love Saquon Barkley in round 3. Then I like these wide receivers. He got Waddle, Judy, Gabe Davis, Hunter Renfrow. He got a, tier 2 tight end in Dalton Schultz. And then he filled out the running back core nicely, I think, with Miles Sanders, Devin Singletary, and Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, those running backs are going to be interesting to watch over these drafts because we've seen in previous years, again, this is the 3rd year of this. So we've seen these drafts go quite differently, where the next draft we could get quarterbacks throughout round 1. We could see multiple teams starting with 3 running backs. It's always interesting to watch to see all the different strategies at work, especially because it's probably a format that most of these folks have not played specifically outside of this. So they're applying some of their strategies from other tournaments, but there's also some going on the fly and seeing how the drafters around you do their thing and how you should react to it.
I was going to say, if there's ever a draft to, be willing to adjust on the fly, it's this one, because there are so many different directions these drafts can go.
Yeah, that's what I think I like about it the most, because that's probably my favorite thing about fantasy is doing that live draft, building that one team, not focusing on an overall portfolio, but, figuring out how I'm going to put together this one team to win this one thing. I think that's fantasy at its best.
For sure.
So, Jared, I think that's a good place to cut off tonight. We had Adam had to duck out early. We've got what round are we in as we're
16. We're late round 16.
So we're almost at the end of round 16. We got 9 more to go after that. They can do the rest of their drafting and concentrate without me talking in their ear, but we will be back for tomorrow night's draft. We'll be back for Friday night's draft, and then 3 more next week. Of course, Jared and I will be drafting our teams armed with that Draft Sharks War Room. That's why I'm always glad when I'm not actually drafting directly against Jared, because I can look at the board and know who he's considering when his pick comes up. Well, we have our separate drafts. We'll be going against, more stacked rooms of analysts and veteran fantasy players. I'm looking forward to mine. I know you are too, Jared.
Yeah, I always know you'll let me have Chris Godwin, so I don't mind drafting against you too much.
I will absolutely let you have Chris Godwin this year. So that'll do it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night. Join us for that one. And of course, check out the Draft Sharks YouTube channel, Apple, Spotify, draftsharks.com for all the podcasts. We've got a lot going on. The whole Beat Writer series where we're 8 shows in, more to come tomorrow, the next day, and next week and beyond. We've got all division previews are up in all of those places, as well as more shows to come on various draft prep subjects. So lots going on. Go to draftsharks.com, become a DS Insider. You can get access to that draft war room. You can sync it to your league. You can have the sidebar running with you as you're doing these drafts, helping you to tell who you should be drafting next, regardless of the format, following whatever you enter into your settings. That's it for tonight. For Jared Smola, for Adam Krautwurst, for the entire Draft Sharks crew, I'm Matt Schaff saying thanks so much for swimming with us.